You've been called to order?
All right, now we're doing it, Claire. We had to wait because we're recording on Access Media. So I call the meeting to order at 7:03. All members are present. Kristen is present. She has to be sworn in, so she is going to be, as a panelist, being able to participate, but she cannot vote. So with that, the first discussion is a discussion with Town Council regarding grant agreements, letters of expectations. So as everyone has been aware, over time, especially in the last year, there was quite a bit of discussion on letters of expectation, grant agreements, MOU. It was trying to understand why some towns allow grant agreements between municipalities, others don't. So we had talked about having Jay come in so we could ask him a ton of questions and just try to get a better understanding. So I will welcome Town Council, Attorney Talaman. Thank you for coming. I'll start off with a few things and just throw a couple things at you, Jay, and you can explain to everybody. You and I have gone over most of these, but the committee hasn't heard it from you. So, so as far as like we'll use the townhouse as an example. So I know that you don't believe that grant agreements are a legal instrument, and you certainly are going to, I know you're going to correct me if I say this wrong, are legal instruments between a CPC and a municipality. I'll let you explain why. I know there's going to be some questions because some towns do indeed do it. I know Greenfield did one with their townhouse, but they only did it because the amount was so high. So I will kind of let you explain your reasoning on why, in your legal opinion, you don't think it's the best avenue for the CPC. So why don't we start there?
It's not whether it's the best avenue. I think we'd love to have everything sewed up with agreements all over the place. You can't do it. It's not legal. So let me start with a couple of basic premises. I think the idea around grant agreements themselves is a great idea. There's grant agreements for all kinds of grants. So I think it was just kind of a natural extension. I mean, no one thought about grant agreements really when the CPA started. And then it kind of like realized, well, we should be binding entities that we're granting money to complete their projects accordingly. And, you know, we have the Community Preservation Coalition, which is an amazing resource, and Stuart Saganor puts his heart and soul into this, and they're great, but they're not lawyers. And they came up with this kind of universal application of grant agreements. And from our perspective, we endorse grant agreements when we're giving money to an outside entity, but you can't contract with yourself. Lisa, you can't sign a contract with yourself to do yard work. You can't sign a contract with yourself. No one can. And town entities can't contract if they're considered all part of the town. Now, there are some town entities that can potentially contract with the town, but very limited examples of that. Like housing authorities have some limited authority because they're not really part of the town. They're a separate entity. So you just can't execute a contract with yourself. So if, with respect to something like repairs to this building for historic purposes, the town releases the money. Community preservation recommends that town meeting take a vote on it. Town meeting takes a vote on it. The treasurer then expends the money at whatever the requirements are on behalf of the town. It is the town. The town also owns the townhouse. They can't sign an agreement with them. The town can't sign an agreement with itself. The Community Preservation Committee doesn't have the authority to sign agreements as a separate entity other than the town. Doesn't exist. So it'd be the select board contracting with the select board, essentially. Can't do that. I can't make a promise. I would love to make a promise that I'm going to pay myself a bunch of money. I think Mrs. Tallerman wouldn't be entirely pleased if I engaged in that. Well, I was bound to do it, so I had to do it. So it's just a legal nullity. It's similar to the fact that we can't convey property to ourselves. We can't restrict our own property. That's why we need third-party people to hold restrictions. You can't do business with yourself. So legally, we just don't have the right to do it. So normally speaking, when the community preservation recommends and then town meeting authorizes an expenditure on a town asset, playground, historic resource, affordable housing unit, whatever it may be, there's no need for any agreement. Everyone's on the same page. The town meeting vote speaks for itself. Sometimes, and it arises, as it does here sometimes, that the Community Preservation Committee's recommendation is contingent on things going a certain way, and that then may be reflected in the town meeting vote. It absolutely should be if you want to impose conditions on it. So in those instances, you and I and Freddie kind of worked together to try and figure out a way to at least make sure everyone's on the same page so that we know what the expectations are to fulfill what town meeting voted on. Because it's not what we vote on, it's what town meeting votes on. So what we kind of came up with is kind of a set of expectations. You know, town meeting voted this. These are the expectations that you're going to live up to for this building. If town meeting had a specific kind of materials or a specific scope or whatever it was, then those are the kinds of things that we can lay out in a series of expectations. But we can't do that through a contract because we just can't sign a contract with ourselves. And I know other towns do it. Okay, they do it, but there's no one that really polices it. There's not like a third party that comes in and says, well, that's wrong, so the whole project is void. So the fact that it has happened doesn't mean that there's someone lurking at the door to cancel that contract. If someone tried to enforce that contract, they'd never be able to. Like if the CPC, for example, was disenchanted with the select board's performance or the Affordable Housing Trust performance, then it's not like you could sue. The town can't sue itself for performance of a contract. So they may exist out there. They don't exist in the towns that, we certainly universally recommend that towns don't do it. Might some of our towns still do it? Possible, but they don't do it on our watch.
So let me ask you this then. So I know with Freddie's help, we did put the conditions for most of the projects in the warrant articles. But say, what recourse is there for CPC and CPC funds if, say, for instance, I'll use the PR here on the townhouse, again, just because it's easy and it's new.
Sure.
So a PR is supposed to be put on. 10 years goes by, Jay, it hasn't been put on. And we're not at 10 years, I'm not saying they're not, but I'm just using it as an example. What recourse does CPC have?
Well, so CPC doesn't have the authority to sue or do anything like that. Putting pressure on someone, now, there's other ways that can be enforced. 10 taxpayers, all kinds of other ways to enforce that. Let me give a better example in terms of what recourse you have. I think this CPC occasionally, and other CPCs that I work with, put a requirement in certain CPC votes. Sometimes it's inappropriate, and we've talked about that in and around Affordable Housing Trust. But let's say all expenditures have to be, run by, before work starts, the scope or something like that has to be run by the CPC for their administrative approval before the treasurer can release the funds. Now, I'm a little wary of that because I don't want to slow down projects by having to wait 30 days to approve a warrant or something like that. But there are instances where that might be a good check. So you're not so much enforcing, but you're a gatekeeper along the way so that work gets done. Sometimes it's not the CPC. Sometimes we might make the DPW the gatekeeper for something if it was or the school department if it was a playground. So we can build in safeguards We can build in gatekeepers and folks that are overseeing things. Again, I'm wary that we should only do so, and I've kind of pushed back a little bit at times on warrant articles around here, that we should only do so when we need to make sure people are doing the right thing. We shouldn't do it in a way to essentially manage someone else's work. We should be doing it in a way to make sure that the money is spent exactly the way that town meeting expected it to be spent.
And I think that's the intention, and that's the concern. I mean, again, we're not saying somebody at this point has done something or hasn't done something, but we view ourselves as the gatekeepers, if you will, I like that term, of the CPC funds and the gatekeeper of the projects, if you will, that they don't go outside or monies aren't spent outside of what they're supposed to be, as well as that the conditions are met that we've all agreed upon with the applicant that they're going to do. So we just want to be able to make sure that the rules are followed and the CPC funds are spent responsibly as they're supposed to be, and that, you know, the requirements that we put on a project are indeed done as they're supposed to be.
Right, and I think you have to, what I would try and stray away from is a one-size-fits-all, where every single expenditure, where the CPC
Right.
is essentially another line of government that is between the contractors working on something. And
Yeah.
I think that you have to pick your spots. So we've talked about Affordable Housing Trust. What we do with Affordable Housing Trust is we give them money. That's what the CPC does. There are rules that they have to follow and statutes that they have to follow that with money that flows from CPA. What we shouldn't be doing is having them have to get the CPC's approval for all of their projects. We're either going to trust them with their work or not. But that's a different situation because we're just giving money without respect to a specific project, because we have the authority to do that under the statute. And so long as they do a good job with those monies, I think there's generally an appetite in towns to keep funding them, because it's a key source of funds for the Affordable Housing Trust, so that they can operate at the speed of business, which is a big reason why the Affordable Housing Trust exists in the first instance. But for a project that has a lot of details that the CPC felt strongly about in terms of bringing to town meeting, I can see some opportunity to have in that town meeting vote, say, you know, provided, however, that no expenditure, the treasurer shall not release any funds until the Community Preservation Committee has reviewed X. You know, we can think about that for each particular project. Sometimes the projects are small, it's a single historical renovation, it's a full funding right at the get-go, pay them to restore something. Sometimes it's a big construction project, and you may want to do it. Now, I'm a little wary about, again, adding another cook in the kitchen for municipal projects. So when we talk about things like this building, where there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen already, it might be that there's plenty of people watching the store. But certainly for private projects, if you're giving money for a private entity and it satisfies the requirements so that it's not in violation of the anti-ADA agreement, we're going to want someone watching the store. And there are some municipal projects where there might be not enough sufficient oversight in the normal course that you might want to have another check on it. But I would do it, you know, when I first started as town council here, there was this kind of pretty draconian language in every single CPA article. And I think over time, the CPC has essentially said, well, we'll pick our spots a little bit more. Some of that is because there's been some pushback, but some of that is it just makes sense. Not every project should be treated the same.
Okay. So before I go any further with anything, I'm going to go down the line. I'm sure other people have questions for you on this. And at the end, hopefully we'll find something, Jay, that you know, we can work towards and take this off all of our plates. So Katie, I know you're new. I don't know if you have any questions. Okay. Ellen?
Great, thank you for coming in. So just wanted to follow up on the point you were just making about wanted to project with a private entity. If that's the case, is it appropriate to use a grant agreement or some other form?
100%.
Okay.
100% of, I guess there's some examples. We could come up with hypotheticals where it's not necessary. I have a town where there's a historic boat, and we're giving money for someone to paint it, and it needed a certain kind of paint, and we just like, okay, do we really need a grant agreement here? It's just gonna slow it down. But yeah, I would recommend nearly 100% of the time that we use grant agreements with private entities.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And so, yeah, just thinking more about the appropriate structure for when it is between two town entities. So understanding the point about the warrant article, and I know what we struggled with a little bit is how complex those warrant articles get. So is there any other form that is more of like the letter of expectations, that's not contractual, that's not signed, but is just another venue to kind of lay out all of those shared?
Well, I have no quarrel with 100% of the time using a letter of expectations. Like, here's our requirements, make sure you check with so that it would apply to everyone, and then we could add on or maybe even take off. But I don't have a problem with educating the recipients, the municipal recipients of this, of what the law is and what town meeting voted on. That's fine. And doing the same thing in a different form with the Affordable Housing Trust, because it's a whole other set of requirements that they have. So that's totally fine with me. The thing I get worried about is making their job harder to do these projects or slowing these projects down. With another unnecessary 30-day, because if you only meet once a month, and then they have to wait before they can start another part of a project. So in some instances, we're gonna wanna have that check on it.
Yep.
So I would just kind of do it project by project, but no problem if everyone had laminated for all, a set of expectations that are out there, a point of contact, all kinds of things that you can have in that. So it falls a little short of a contract, but it's pretty much understood that when someone comes in and applies for a project or is requesting money, they understand what they're in for.
Great, thank you. And I think that really captures some of what we've been thinking about, right? That it's more of the nuances that are discussed during the project application about the types of certification and the standards that have to be done for a historical project or an open space project. So just a way to document all of that is helpful, so.
Yeah, record keeping's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it for me, so thank you.
Thank you. Grant?
Hi, Jay. Thanks for being here. This is really helpful. And I'm pretty sure I followed everything you said so far tonight. Just a quick question. So when we're proceeding, getting closer to the town meeting, and it's a private entity that we're dealing with. So would it be the preference to include most of the details about the kind of the agreement that the CPC has come to with the applicant that we've discussed? Should those details be included in the grant agreement or the warrant article itself? So to me, it sounds like if we're doing it with the municipality, a committee comes to us, that kind of thing, that really those details should be in the warrant article, right? Because there can't be a grant agreement. But if it's a private entity, should those kind of nuances or details be in the grant agreement, or is it preferred to have it just all in the warrant article?
So I'd view it there. So first of all, we're not going to include everything that's in a grant agreement in a warrant article, because there's a lot of other just legal boilerplate in those things that we have to have in it. But I would view that as kind of purposeful redundancy, and we're serving multiple masters there too, don't forget. So town meeting, you want to get town meeting on board with something. So there are some details that you want town meeting to lock in, because town meeting is the entity that can lock in certain requirements and conditions of the grant. And I think, so those are kind of the big ticket items in terms of like deadlines, what it looks like, the scope of it, caps, all kinds of things on there that you may want to include in a warrant article, include in there. We're going to reference that warrant article in the grant agreement probably, but I also don't have a problem with repeating all those requirements for the sake of redundancy not just because I think redundancy is important, but it also gives us another avenue of recourse if someone isn't doing what they're promised to do. So I can enforce what a town meeting approved on a particular project, but I'd kind of rather have be able to enforce someone to abide by the terms of a contract. It's a little bit more straightforward, so there's some benefit in having that redundancy built in there in some way, whether it's just by attaching the town meeting vote or repeating the requirements of that town meeting vote.
Great, that's really helpful. Thanks.
All right, Kristen?
Thanks. Well, thank you. I agree. It's all pretty clear as it was laid out. Just three quick thoughts came to mind. One, as we were talking, was trying to think of when an entity within the town, like two entities, had a financial type of agreement, and recreation actually came to mind, where we had a proposal going in front of town meeting having to do with a field. It was somewhat debatable. People were it was Clanderfield, debating whether or not the project could be done, whether or not engineering would come through, be able to solve certain problems. And so they were wary of committing the money. So what we did agree and we put into the warrant article was a phased approach where there was toll gates, where we and the select board were the gatekeepers, or actually in this case, the select board were the gatekeepers to be like, okay, yep, we're good at this point. We'll move on, and again, release the second phase of funding, whatever it may be. I think we were engineering and then design, construction, whatever it was. So I do think there's something to be said about that. The second thing that came to mind was, especially, again, a comment that was made by Mr. Tellerman was that, for example, if we looked at the Affordable Housing Trust Fund this year, we granted a certain amount of money, the town voted it through, and we have principles that we agreed to with the committee to make sure that it fell within certain, I guess, there was 7 or 8 core principles in terms of how that money would be spent. And at the time, what really kind of resonated, I think, with a lot of us was, well, if for some reason they don't, they break out, and I don't think this is going to happen, but for some reason we feel like the committee strays from the original agreement, well, then that's fine. Then we have recourse, because next year we'll be having the discussion again about releasing funds to the Affordable Housing Trust. And so we're building up a trust and we're building up a relationship. Again, I don't think that's going to happen. So that's just all in agreement of what was discussed. But the third is that the only thing I'm not sure that this helps solve for is the PR, because PRs take a long time to get. Projects might get done and finished from a construction standpoint, but what legs do we have to stand on to really enforce that PR? Again, I'm not saying we're going to solve for that, but those were my 3 thoughts.
So let's talk about the PRs or the CRs or the HPRs or the affordable housing restrictions. It's an absolute requirement that if you're purchasing property, and it's really, the absolute requirement only exists in the purchase of property. Sometimes we impose a requirement for an HPR even when we're not purchasing property, and town meeting can certainly do that. But when we're purchasing property, it's an absolute legal requirement that we have an HPR or a PR or a CR or whatever it is. So if it's for those purposes. So there's a number of different ways, and you're not the only town where those things kind of get forgotten about. There's a number of ways that we can control that. We can state, so first of all, we give the authority to either convey or accept an appropriate restriction within the warrant article. We can choose, and probably should, not to disperse funds until we have that restriction on the books. Again, I think it's not uncommon for people to forget about that step just because they're anxious to get a project going and it just kind of falls by the wayside. And sometimes you need a third party to do it, and someone's got to draft it all. So I think that we can develop mechanism and a process so that we're not going to disperse funds until that restriction is on the books. And we can either do that just by establishing that policy or building that into the warrant article too. I don't have a problem with that. And then the enforcement of the restriction itself, it's that's another item that has all kinds of, that document has all kinds of enforcement mechanisms within it. So that's a different animal. But I think we can kind of get on track with saying, okay, we're buying this property. We're not giving any money until we have the restriction in place. Or sometimes if we're buying it, we're going to have that restriction right on the back of that purchase so that we secure that it'll happen at the same time. And we can look at each transaction and make sure that we're applying the right kind of timeline and the right kind of contingencies to make sure the restrictions are coming in at the time or at least contemporaneously with the acquisitions.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. That was it, Lisa.
Thank you. Claire, do you have any questions? I know you're new too, but you're certainly welcome to ask.
Yeah, is the goal of this conversation to create a set of guidelines or restrictions that don't currently exist?
So I think the goal of this conversation, Claire, is as we've gone to the last couple town meetings, there are certain conditions that the CPC felt strongly should have been part of the warrant. And we did a letter of expectation, and then we ended up having a problem with one of those. So we found that, that didn't really work. So we were just trying to find a way over the last year in working with Jay and, asking questions on trying to find the best path for some form of document that spells out what exactly
Okay.
our expectations are. And we were concerned about recourse as well, but I think Jay's addressed that tonight.
So, okay, so I think that probably answers part of my question in that, obviously, stuff is, there's been some stuff that has been missing as far as what the CPC feels. And this has shown up in a couple situations. Is that fair enough? Without identifying them, is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think so overall, Claire.
Okay. So then the goal then would be to, out of this, would be to come up with some kind of guidelines, whether it's, are they, the size of the project? Is it, dealing with certain, outside entities, so to speak? Who is this actually directed towards?
So Claire, it's a combination. I mean, Ellen asked a great question on, when we could actually use a grant agreement. It would be on an outside entity. So that kind of answered that question. So we have that path going forward. But when it is a municipal department or a municipal building, that's where this conversation came in. And I think Jay's given us a little bit of direction. I know the coalition actually has a letter, and I was going to give Jay a copy of this as well. I think it might be a good starting point for us. And it is a letter that says congratulations, and it lists the recipient of the Community Preservation Funds, and it says your efforts and cooperation during this year's project selection process helped secure. It talks about the support, and it says what they agreed on, and then it lists the conditions. It says, please pay close attention to the following important instructions and funding conditions. And they lay it out in the document, and the CPC would appreciate a notice when work on the project has commenced, periodic updates. So I think, Jay, this may be, can you give that to Jay? Would you mind? I know you're on the outside. I think, and the coalition has this on their website, but I think in looking at this, as I was digging through stuff today, this may be right along the lines of what you're talking about, Jay. It's not really, it is a letter of expectation to a point, but it's a welcome, hey, congratulations, you got your money now, let's just go over again, this is what we expect.
Right. I mean, I would want to look at it. I want to
course.
make sure that we're not requiring them to do something that isn't legal or
Right.
part of what town meeting is doing. But yeah, I mean, if we're just really tracking the law plus municipal procedure for release of funds,
Yep.
or if there's a particular contingency in that warrant article or the motion under the warrant article, we're going to add that in here, maybe. But if you wanted to have a generic one even before they apply or during the, hey, thank you for applying, just so you know, if you're approved, this is the process that you're going to have.
That might actually be a
Right,
good
yeah,
idea.
that makes sense.
But even after the fact, so like a letter like this, it would have to be obviously geared towards each individual.
Right, we would customize, but
right.
you should like make it crystal clear to applicants, whether they be the local pickleball group
Yep.
looking for something, or a historic group or whatever, looking to preserve something, then, they should know what they're getting into. It's government.
Right.
We don't always move that quickly, and we try and move quickly, but still, there are some requirements that we have to apply.
Okay.
We don't want to get in the way of people doing good projects, but there's certain assurances that we need.
So does your office by chance have some generic letter? Okay, so maybe we'll work on a generic letter, send it over to you to take a look at, and it'll become part of our application process.
Yeah, I did just work on for a brand-new CPC kind of, like different kinds of criteria, more like selection criteria that they looked at. So we're always doing things in terms of working on language that helps specific
Yeah,
CPCs. Like some CPCs don't want to hear about it after the fact. We did our job, we approved it, someone else enforced this requirement. And that's not, I'm not saying that in a pejorative sense, it's just they know the other mechanisms are in place. And maybe every once in a while, one gets past the goalie and a project goes a little haywire. But then there are also CPCs that are also a little too close to projects, where it essentially, they're killing projects. And I've had a number of examples on that. So finding the, I hate to invoke cliches that are out there, but like kind of trusting but verifying is kind of a way I would look at this. Is like, you got to trust that people are doing the right things. You're recommending their grant go forward. You just need them to follow the rules.
I mean, I don't think any of us want to micromanage anything, but I think there's real important parts to projects. We want to make sure, and again, I think this is very helpful to, not disperse until like the PRs and the CRs are on the books. I mean, I think for certain projects, that's the most important key part of, what we're looking for. So I think that was very helpful. So again, this is on the CPC website, but I'll email this around to everybody, just so we can kind of take a look at it. And, we won't be using something like this till the fall, after we get the applications, but it might be something in September that we can kind of put something together. And Jay, you'd like to review the letters before we?
I mean, that's always up to you. As you know, I'm always happy to review things. You don't have to give me anything if you don't want to. I think I'd recommend that we look at it so that it's legal as to form.
Okay.
Sometimes I might offer a recommendation, but I won't reach into your letter writing and
Okay.
tell you, anything about it unless you ask me to. But I stand ready, as do other attorneys in the office. Liz Leiden, who you all work with
Yep.
quite a bit, also has a decent amount of experience in this arena as well. And when it comes to grant agreements in particular, she'll be drafting all those.
Okay, so we'll put this on our next meeting, and, we can go over what we would be looking for. I have one final question for you. So as I was digging through stuff to prepare for tonight, in 2016, there was a legislative act regarding transferring CPA funds to housing trusts and CPA exempt deadlines, and I'll give this to you as well. One of the things that caught my eye in it, Jay, was it says that it authorizes Massachusetts Affordable Housing Trust to execute grant agreements. Most communities require a grant agreement between the municipality and the trust to establish conditions for the transfer of funds. Trusts currently, and that was before this one in, do not have explicit authority to execute grant agreements. Can you just, I'll give this to you, I highlighted it, can you give that to him too? I'm just curious of your thoughts on that, because I know we talked about grant agreements like with the trust and stuff, and I just, again, I
So
want to
Under Chapter 44, Section 55C, which
Okay.
is the Affordable Housing Trust statute, it
Right.
says specifically there that
Yeah.
they are an entity of the town,
Okay,
subject to the rules and requirements of the town.
okay,
Affordable Housing Trusts do have the authority to enter into contracts with the folks that they are granting to. What they can't do is enter into an agreement with the town. We run into this from time to time with affordable housing trusts when we're trying to convey the care, custody, and control of our own property, or money or property is coming into the town, and then we want it to go out to the Affordable Housing Trust. It can be a bit of a boondoggle because we can't deed property. Town meeting has to act to change the care, custody, and control.
Right.
So I don't think they fully thought through all of this when they formed, and I'm really thankful as kind of an affordable housing advocate that we have affordable housing trusts. But they threw this statute out there. It's awesome, but there's a lot of things we've had to come in and patch over it. Now, and again, I'm thankful every day for what the Community Preservation Coalition does and their advocacy and their promotion of the CPA program. But what they say about what folks can and can't do as a matter of law is, please check with us first on those things, because I love Stuart, but sometimes we disagree with him on the law.
Fair enough. That's why I dug it up and I saw it, and I thought, well, we had you here, we would take the
Yeah.
opportunity to
99% of the time, we're agreeing with
Okay.
with the
So you-
things they say.
because just so I'm clear, because it's an entity still of the town.
Correct.
Okay.
And they could have, and I thought it might have been a good idea, and maybe we'll see this change, where they would have they could even give a special dispensation where we could grant back and forth. I don't really care about the grant agreement so much, because
Yeah.
that doesn't bother me. I care about the conveyance of land. Like, the town may have a piece of land that they would just like to change their care, custody, and control over, and how do you get it over to the Affordable Housing Trust? Or someone is donating a piece of land and we have to do like a two-step. It would be much easier if we could have it go direct. And so there's a number of things I think the legislature could fix about that process. I think they have their hands full with a bunch of other things these days, but, I think we could improve that. I'm not too worried about the grant agreements, worried about other transactions by and between the town and the Affordable Housing Trust that I think we could make easier, so that they could acquire a property easier and then convey it out or do whatever.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Jay,
I'm going to go around one more time to see if anybody else has any questions for Jay before we cut him loose, as it's the second time he's been at the townhouse today. Katie? Ellen? Grant?
yeah, just a quick follow-up, Jay. You spoke earlier about potentially requiring a preservation restriction or conservation restriction ahead of the disbursement of funds for acquisition of property, or of a building or that kind of thing. I just wanted to see, could that be a method that's used for other types of preservation or conservation work, in terms of, let's just say the town isn't going to acquire a building, but still wants, the CPC still wants a
Oh, yeah.
preservation restriction?
100%. So and that comes up both in conservation as well as historic preservation more frequently, where someone is doing something on a historic structure in town that still provides some public benefit, but it is privately owned. And we want to safeguard the fact, if we're going to invest $1 million in someone to fix whatever it is, a piece of architecture, an architectural feature there, that they're not going to turn around and sell it for purposes that aren't, attuned to preservation. So often, part of the bargain that we'll have there, it's not required under law, but we will say, hey, we're interested as the Community Preservation Committee, but only if you're willing to lock this property up.
Yeah, and I know we've done that previously, but
It's a good practice. Right.
Also specifically requiring it before the funds are kind of transferred out as well.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, okay.
there are instances where it's not necessary, the property isn't going anywhere, there's already a restriction on it, we don't need to bother with it, but yeah, that is not uncommon. My point is that it's not required, so we can develop our own rules in and around that when you have to do sometimes, like prior to completion of the work, so we can design our process there a little bit more. It's on the ones that are an absolute requirement that we should get a more uniform process, I think.
Great. Thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Kristen, did you have anything else?
No, just thank you also.
Okay, Claire?
This has been informational. like I said, I'm kind of new to the group. I think that it's given me some stuff to research, and I will get back with more questions. Thank you.
Awesome, Claire, thank you. Jay, thank you for coming tonight.
Of course.
We appreciate it. We've been kind of going round in circles on this for quite a while, so I think it's given some clarity. Freddie, before you go, did you have anything you wanted to add or ask? Oh, you gotta hit your button. Oh, down below, in the middle. There you go.
I think you've hit most of it. Some of the committee members may not know, though, that this came up because we went through a situation where things didn't happen, and then we came up with an MOU, and that wasn't allowed. We had letters of expectations, and the best one of the benefits is you go through a lengthy application process, and, you know, the committee asks questions, are you going to do this? Or the applicant says, we're going to do such and such, and this was a way of documenting that, because you can't write a two-page, or we try not to write a two-page warrant article to get everything in. And what it also is really beneficial to the committee is if a project, sometimes something happens and they take longer, you have a document, you know, down the road, well, this is what, you know, we agreed on, and it's not the, you know, in addition to the warrant article specifics, you know, this was the intention, what the expectation of the committee and the applicant. They're not made up on their own without the applicant, you know, conversation. And also talking about, in the past, we actually have a form that we used where you include the warrant article. So there's like a whole thing about, you know, that it's a file that is very beneficial to the committee to look at later if something comes up that, especially in a prolonged, delayed project that happens once in a while. So I think the letter of expectation is critically important.
Jay, thank you again. We really appreciate, and good luck with your surgery.
Claire has her hand raised.
Excuse me, yeah, Lisa, if I could, Freddie just actually did a much better job explaining my questions in terms of what this whole discussion was about. And I think she, thanks, Freddie, you solidified what I was kind of wondering, have we had these kind of situations in the past? So that's, thank you, in support.
All right, thank you, Jay. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank
Take
you.
care. All right, next on our agenda is Trails Committee Update and Open Project. Kat, welcome. Thank you for putting together a really great document. Let me see. Thank you, Jay. Let me see if I can
Good evening.
pull it up. Maybe not. Katie, if I make you co-host, can you pull up a document from Dropbox?
I have copies if anyone would
No,
benefit.
I want to put it on the screen. Kat, so give me 2 seconds. Let me just do this. Everybody bear with me 1 second. Oh, Katie, are you? Oh, okay. So to change you from co-host and make host. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, and it's in the Dropbox, yep, under Trails Update. Perfect. And then Kat, we'll let you speak to it, but we'll have it on the screen for you as well.
Thank you.
I can make it work in mine. Yeah, that's it, yeah. All right, well, she puts that up on the screen. Kat, why don't you introduce yourself, and we'll let you get started.
Great. Catherine McKee, Southborough Trails Committee Chair. Great, so I am here to just provide a quick update, status update on where we are with our projects. It's really one project, but in 2 phases. So I provided an update. I apologize for the delay in not getting that to you earlier. So I think it's easiest if we take the project and talk about the phases in the form of the CPC application, the CPA application. The first phase, as I've outlined here, was, and we did this back in, I think it was 2022 town meeting. So it was to install fencing around a riser shaft along the trail that was required by MWRA and DCR to protect the structure, and to install some wayfinding and regulatory signage along the trail. There was also an expanded scope, and we had wrapped into that agreement, or that application, that we would leverage the funds as matching funds for a Mass Trails grant. So we did receive the Mass Trails grant of $50,000, and our match was $30,572. So what we have been doing on that phase we've completed the fencing, and we also installed parking. So we first installed the parking as an unpaved several spots, and that was going to be used as match for our grant. We, as noted earlier in the overview, part of the trail is ADA compatible. So we had an ADA consultant come out and do an assessment and measured slope and stuff to ensure the trail qualified. And they identified that the parking was good, but if we really wanted to make the parking accessible, it needed to be a different type of surface. So it was more, less sturdy, it was basically the type of gravel that was used, which was not ideal. So we opted to pave. And so that part of the project, what we've done and spent is on the fencing, and we have met our match with ARPA funds. That was a separate bucket. I want to just be careful because there's multiple buckets and it can get confusing. So if I speak over or you're not sure about something, feel free to ask. So we use the ARPA funds to help pay for the paving. So now we have 5 new parking spots, and 2 of those are ADA compatible. So that's phase 1, and our next step is to finish the signage, which is what we're working on now. We're just finalizing text and working with a vendor to get the signs designed, built, and installation, and that will all be done by the end of this year. We did extend the grant by 1 year to allow us to dig into the historical aspect of the signage to ensure we could, what we were interested in doing is finding resources to help us understand the Native American aspect of the history of Southborough, so that we can include that, because part of our signage is really about highlighting the building of the dam, how that impacted the people at the time, and some aspects like that. So as you walk along the trail, you'll get to learn how the reservoir was built and various things. So that's phase 1. So I'll stop and see if you have any questions.
I don't. Thank you for, this was really great what you put together, Kat, but I'll go down. Does anyone, Katie, Ellen? Grant, any questions on phase 1?
The only thing I have, Kat, is in terms of the history of the Native Americans, that sounds really interesting. Is that something that Trails is doing on its own, or were you reaching out for help from the Southborough Historical Society or any of the other groups?
Yeah,
Curious.
so that's a great question. Thanks for asking it. We initially had received letters of support from the Historical Society, or was it Historical Commission? And our thoughts were to have them help with the signage. There's been some turnover since the original application, so if we were to include the Historical Commission, if they're interested in doing so, we've not approached them recently in doing that. We, at the DCR Trails Conference in 2024, connected with an individual in Framingham who had a great resource for Native American information in the area. We've been unsuccessful at connecting with them to help us. So we could certainly, if the commission is interested, I don't know if you still serve on that grant, but we would certainly be looking for someone to verify information, because I think that's going to be the biggest piece for us, is to ensure that what we're sharing is accurate and has been vetted.
Yeah, no, it was just the first I had heard of it, and so I haven't talked to the commission about that, but I would imagine, if you need help or anything, we might be able to. And then the other is outside of the commission, this Historical Society, which is the private nonprofit group, might also have information that might be, helpful, or that's all I'm thinking of. So,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Kristen, did you have anything?
No, nothing yet. Thank you.
Claire?
No, actually, very, very good reporting. And I just need a lot of understanding on this, but your reporting was excellent.
Thank you.
All right, move on to phase 2.
Great. So phase 2 was, I should back up a little bit and just talk a little bit about phase 1. So as part of this project, we wanted to, there's a section of trail, we wanted to connect the Peninsula Trail to the Bay Circuit Trail, so it essentially connects 3 regional trails into one, and it reroutes the trail as it currently exists off of a very dangerous section of Route 30 that doesn't have a shoulder, no sidewalks, and you wouldn't want to walk. So in order to do that, we need to put a bridge and boardwalk in place. As we were developing the scope of the project, it came to us that the original engineering quote for that was a little bit back of the envelope, was a lot less than we had anticipated. And so we needed to raise more funds, and that was the reason why we went after a second CPA application, because at the same time so there was ARPA, and so we had ARPA money set aside to help with the project. We recognized that we needed more engineering. We went out, was it in 2023? We got bids for our engineering services, and it was in the, just under 100,000 range. And so we did go to bid with the ARPA money intent to pay for it. And our bid, while we had 26 companies pull the bid in interest, no one bid on it. So we had reached out to our bidders, we asked why, and they came back and said, we really should do the engineering services ourselves, put it together in the bid and put that out. And that would be a more desirable package for firms to respond to. So that then started us on that path. So that's been a long time. The engineering we started, we had 3 quotes come in. We also, at the same time, submitted another application to a nonprofit out west that does they do engineering services for municipalities and projects for deserving communities. And our application was accepted, and it was going to help pay for some of the geotechnical services. That ended up taking months, and they warned us. They said the timeline might not align with us, and so we gave them like 3 to 5 months to figure that out, and we had to let that go because it wasn't working out. So then that delayed us a little bit. So we've been working with Beals and Thomas since last year. I think they started in May. So things have been going well for the engineering for the bridge and boardwalk. Most recently, so that's where we are, and we, at the same time, submitted an application for our phase 2, which is to go to bid for a general contractor and the building of the bridge, the purchasing and the building of the bridge and the boardwalk. So that went through in 2024, but we have to do the engineering services first. So we're very close to being done now. We've had some delays along the way, and most recently was wanting to make sure that the bridge height was, the structural engineer wanted to make sure the bridge height was the right height, given the floodplain and the water and, right, the velocity of the water and where it was located. And so it was coming back that they wanted to have the bridge a little bit higher than the road bridge, so that wasn't really going to fly. So then we've gone back and needed an extra little bit of money, which I'll talk about. That's part of a request to spend some of our CPC funds on that, on an invoice to pay for some additional testing to ensure that everything is good. So they just finished that, and there was some hiccups with working with MWA, some timing and things that, they scheduled the event, then they had to reschedule various things. So now they have all the data, and Beals is in good place to give us a final bid package. They're going to provide the bid in full. We have to have the town review it, of course, and so that should be ready by the end of July. I'll say beginning of August, because I can say the end of July and then things will shift again. So once we go to bid, then most of our time with Beals will be, they'll provide some bid support, answer some questions and whatnot. So once we go to bid, then at the end of this year, or, quarter 3 and 4, we should be ready to pick a vendor, assuming we have, responsive bids, and start the project. So whether it gets done late this year or early next year, or mid next year, I'll say, because winter probably isn't a great time to install that. So now that's the trajectory we're on. And the CPC Phase 2 project is essentially just for the contractor, the boardwalk and the bridge. Oh, I guess I should say, so in addition to that, so part of the CPC 2 project was the paving of the parking. So we had included that in the project, but we were able to use some of our ARPA money, and that's what we did. So we used our ARPA money first to do the paving and the engineering services for that, and that got done earlier this year. So, and we've done also the natural surface trail in June. We worked with the Appalachian Mountain Club volunteers to help us build part 1 of that natural surface, which worked well. And so we plan to do part 2 of that in the fall. And I think, that's it. So any questions on Phase 2?
Just one question. So you anticipate, one question for me, I should say. So you anticipate the work to begin between January and December of sometime in '26?
Well,
Is
if
that
we have a successful bid, then we could
Could
get
be
started
sooner.
at the end of the year.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you. Katie? Ellen?
Sorry, so this is probably what you're getting to. So looking at the Phase 1 budget, since you were so successful using money from other sources and none of that's been spent, you see at the end you're requesting some of that money to cover one invoice. Maybe this is a question for us too. What happens to the rest of that money?
Thank you. I believe, and I tried to look at a few minutes, but I couldn't exactly find the timeline when we discussed it, but I had been at a previous meeting here, and we talked about the opportunity of using some of the original Phase 1 to apply to Phase 2, but I don't have the date of when we talked about that, and we may want to revisit whether that's a viable option for our purposes.
I'm looking for the minutes. I couldn't find when you came, and so I'll follow up on it. And
Thanks.
that's not because this was a complicated project.
Oh.
And, the Trails Committee came in with a project idea that was really fantastic. And at the same time, timing is difficult. And there was a Mass Trails grant, but you need to have the money approved to match it before you can apply. But we had a CPA grant, so we worked really hard. I worked with Kat, drafting a warrant article that had a specific project that also legally allowed the funds to be used towards a match for a grant they didn't know they were going to get. So that if they didn't get the grant, they still had a project, and if they did get the grant, that they could have a match and would be able to qualify for the grant. Very challenging with the timeline of our town meeting and the grant application. So that creates some confusion here because the project wasn't like, it changed when you got the the Mass Trail grant. Is that correct? So the original amount was for a project with signage.
Fencing and signage.
Well, okay, fencing and signage, and the only thing left for that CPA Phase 1 is the signage, correct? You've gotten everything else done with, because then you went ahead and got ARPA funding. So the question is, what exactly is left for Phase 1, which was what was approved by town meeting? And if there's a way for the committee to be comfortable for using some of that for a different project, Phase 2. I mean, it's not the same project, but it was approved at town meeting separately. And when is that coming into play aside from the first dollar amount?
I'm not quite sure what you mean.
You're going to need, the project's not starting right now.
Which one? Like, do you mean?
Well, you have signage for Phase 1. Do you have signage invoices that are going to be coming in right now?
Yeah, they're, not yet, but they will be.
When?
In the next, like, month or two?
And is it going to take the full amount of the money that's in the 47, no, it's 42,000.
So we still, no, it will not take the full 47.
So that
because
is the issue that the CPC is going to have to address, like, if the money comes in less, what is the project for those funds? If the money, if the invoices to complete Phase 1 comes in under because you had ARPA funds,
Yes,
now you've got Phase 1 is complete, and you didn't spend all the money.
right,
Can that remaining money,
right,
which is going to be more significant than $3,200 or $5,000,
correct.
can that be used
Right.
towards? And I'll dig out the warrant articles, and I'll dig out that conversation, but I believe the meeting you came to was what you wrote here, 3,200, a request?
Yes, so for today, we're looking to, we're requesting spending for 3,200 that will cover some excess budget of the engineering services.
Of the engineering services, which you believe, and I just can't find it, that
Yeah.
you already asked for.
I think so, yeah, I'm pretty sure, and I
So
can put forth some effort to find
to
that.
make this, my understanding is that is certainly fundable under Phase 2.
Yeah.
And the question is, let's get the warrant articles and then see, because there is nothing, it's complicated because the engineering became a nightmare for you, right? I shouldn't say a nightmare, but it was not what you expected. I mean, and you thought you had some pro bono help, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you have a $100,000 charge to do the engineering that you never expected. And then I know when this first came up, Ben who was the prior chair, he's an engineer. And when everyone was like, how could that be? He understood. I mean, and he gave the committee some confidence in how expensive engineering work can be. And it has to do with where the footings have to go, and you certainly want people to be safe and secure. So I don't see this as anything that, we can fund what you have now and maybe take it out of Phase 2 if the committee doesn't get back and make a decision on what you're going to do with the remaining funds of Phase 1 that's not on signage, because you spent other money on it.
So let me ask this, because town meeting voted for Phase 1 for something specific, what will it require to use money from Phase 2? I understand it's the same project, and I get that, but is it sufficient for us to take a vote for that, or does it require more?
I would suggest you have funds in Phase 2, which would cover what you're looking for in this engineering funding.
Yes.
And this committee's not planning to meet again till September. Okay. So if they meet in August, that's better, but if not, I would never advise you to do something without doing a little more looking at. I think we need to look at the application, but more importantly, the warrant article, and see, and you may want to get other advice, because you certainly have, it's one beautiful, I don't want to say it. One beautiful project. It is wonderful, and I know how hard you have worked to make this happen, and all the balls up in the air. On the other hand, this committee needs to be responsive to what town meeting actually voted on. And I think you need to do, before you say, oh, we just will vote to say that, it's like you can't say,
Well, that was my question. Is it just a vote, or is it more extensive? Again, we'd have to look at the warrant article.
you have to, because you can't go to town meeting for, just pretend, to buy a boat, and then the committee say, hey, we're going to get a car instead. And it's not quite, I'm exaggerating, but you just want to make sure you follow what the warrant article was.
So, Kat, how quickly are you looking to get these funds?
So I do have an outstanding invoice, so it would be helpful if I could, pay that invoice within 30 days.
Okay. So what, and again, I'll go around to the committee that,
May I just ask one question? Does it matter if it comes out of Phase 2, if it's a Phase 2?
I don't think it matters. It doesn't matter for paying this invoice, no. But it is, I'm looking forward to hearing the answer to whether any of the funds of the first project can apply to the second, because, given the market and the price increases of most everything, the quotes that we receive for the steel bridge, may be very different now. So there may be, while we have a nice contingency, and that was something Ben had recommended, the number being 15%, and he had he recommended that being higher for those reasons, because project expenses change. So it would just be good to know. So I think, to your answer, yes, we can use Phase 2 funds, and that won't be a problem.
So Kat, when do you think you're going to have I know you're working on the signage, but when do you think you'll have the final invoices, so we know? I think it's hard to go forward unless we actually know what's left. I mean, if we found a way to do the 3,200 and then the signs came in more, then we're in a pickle. So is there any way to find out? I think that would be helpful in the discussion, as to how much you think the signage is going to cost, so we know what's left. And in the interim, we can do due diligence. We can look at the warrant article.
Yep.
Check with Jay.
Yeah, we'll check with Jay as well, just to see, because it is the same project, if there's a way to be able to do that. So, but if we had an idea of what you think might be left,
Yes.
that would be helpful.
Yes, I can pull that. So we have recent quotes for the signage. We just have, the only outstanding piece is the install. So that will take a little bit of time to figure that out.
And
Can I jump in with a question quickly?
I just didn't want you having an invoice that's sitting out there not paid, because there's money to pay it,
Yeah.
depending which bucket you take it out of.
Yeah.
Okay, Grant, we're going to come to you. We're going to go down the line to see if anybody
Okay.
had any questions on Phase 2. Sorry. Katie? Go ahead.
So this might be obvious to everyone else, but if we pay this invoice from Phase 2, are you going to the bottom line for Phase 2 be short this amount? I know there's a contingency, but is it going to impact what's budgeted for Phase 2?
3,200 is probably not going to make a difference. No,
Okay.
I wouldn't. I'm not that concerned about it, but I say that without knowing new quotes and things like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Ellen? Grant, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, so have any of the I see on the materials that you presented, Kat, that, there's a $4,000 contingency for Phase 1 and a $27,000 contingency for Phase 2. Have any of those contingency funds been used yet? Or applied for from the CPC?
Have we applied for the contingency or asked for? ask for the approval. I want to say we talked about contingency on Phase 1, but we're going to have to find the minutes to clarify that. And no, on Phase 2, we have not approached the committee to request additional funds. That's going to really come out when we go to bid, and we'll have a good budget number, and we'll know whether we need to start asking that question or not.
Okay, so the reason I asked is if you need essentially $3,200 for Phase 1 and you have a $4,000 contingency, it might be simpler to, request the CPC to release those contingency funds from the Phase 1, potentially, and then that way you could, it wouldn't require kind of transferring between projects.
I think-
If you've already used that contingency fund, obviously that's not an option, but that's why I was asking.
No, I think the problem is, Grant, that the engineering services that we're looking to pay are more aligned with Project 2, Phase 2, than
Oh.
Phase 1. And that's the question of clarification that Lisa and Freddie will be researching, whether we can even
Oh,
use
okay.
Phase 1 funds for the project.
Sorry about that, thanks.
Claire, are you back?
I am, thanks.
Do you have anything to add or questions for Kat?
No, I'm sure whatever she's asking for is chit, for lack of a better term.
Thank you, Claire.
Okay, thank you. Kat, I just want to say, I give you a lot of credit. There were so many moving parts in this. I'm sure you have dedicated more than the last 2 years. I can't even add up, I can't even imagine the number of hours. It must be like almost another full-time job, trying to juggle all the balls and to figure out where you're going to do things with, and there's just so many moving pieces. So I commend you and your committee, but I know you're doing a lot of the work on your own, so I commend you for that, because it's may have started out as just a great feel-good project, but boy, it has just snowballed into something that 50,000 moving pieces, different funding pieces, and everything else. So on behalf of the committee, I think we all agree that it's outstanding. It's outstanding what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I have to say, we've had a really great experience with the CPC. We really appreciate all of the support, and the town support. It's just been amazing, and we're really excited. When this comes together, this will be a wonderful addition to the town trails, and I really hope the people really enjoy it, and it adds a lasting impact, and has a lasting impact, and a good, provides great resources for us to all still continue to enjoy the outdoors. And
That's awesome. So in the meantime, if you just want to pay it out of Phase 2, we'll get answers to your questions, and, we'll have a conversation if you feel, or we feel that we need to even just do a quick Zoom. If it's something we need to do in August, we can certainly do that, or otherwise, if it can wait till September. But in the interim, we'll be, Freddie and I will dig up the information and get it to you as well, and we'll try to put a path together. So,
Great.
obviously, we're very receptive. It's a great project, and, we want to be there to help you as much as we can.
thank you. And if you have questions, which may come up, just let me know about that. And then I just wanted to ask a question about, so some of the things I couldn't answer, which was, payment schedule and timeline. So with this invoice, so how would because this is our first time really going through the funding process. So how do I, and I think you touched base on this in your email, do I send it to you?
Email it to me and Lisa, and Kristen is the vice chair. So the three, and that way
Great.
we'll get it paid.
Okay, and
So
then
it's
you
not between
handle
you,
Carla, and
it's
you
not
do all
between
of
you and
that.
accounting, it's the CPC takes
That's
care of
helpful.
it.
Thank
And
you.
then, that was the other thing about POs, I think you had something here about it, is that if you need a purchase order because something's so large, or after you go out to bid, CPC wants a copy of the approved bid when it gets to that. And purchase orders are put on the account by the CPC. In the past, somebody went and put a purchase order, and that's encumbering the CPC account, which only the CPC is supposed to, release funds from, just as a little check and balance. So you don't want to think there's, funds there that aren't available because there's a PO on it that somebody down the road forgot about, and then you try to pay an invoice, and it's through the CPC.
Perfect. Thank you.
Makes it easier down the road.
Easier for me.
Awesome. Thank you for spending
you.
part of your evening with us. We do appreciate it.
Thanks. Stay cool.
All right, next up, discussion of a 5-year plan. Grant, was that you that asked me to put it on the agenda? Somebody asked me at the last meeting to add this, and I didn't write down who.
Yeah, and I think we discussed it at forum, I believe.
Okay.
I don't have anything prepared or anything like that.
Okay,
I think we wanted to discuss it and actually start potentially working towards that, just because, is it a requirement? I believe it is, or.
Yep.
I think we should start thinking about it and how we should kind of approach it, so, but I don't have anything right now, but maybe, I don't know if you wanted to have a discussion, or, yeah.
yeah, I mean, we could, go ahead,
I'll
Claire.
just add that, I think a starting point is for, at least for those committees that we all respectively represent, like I know rec, we couldn't meet last night, but one of the things we're trying to do is revisit, obviously, our capital planning, and then what might we, to your point, the next few years, look to CPC for. So we can then submit it. So if we all do that with our respective committees as a starting point, and then, I think an outreach to the other areas that typically may ask for money is something we all should be actively doing at this point.
So what I'll do is, it's the same thing we do before the forum. I send out an email to all the department heads and everybody. I'll send out another email just saying that, we're looking towards a 5-year plan, and, if they have any projects now or in the future, to please let us know, and, we'll put this on the agenda, and we'll see what kind of feedback we get. So, Kristen, you'll get an email from me anyway. It might be easier to just have me send out one general and have everybody
for
respond.
sure. Yep.
Okay, is everybody good with that?
Lisa, I don't know if this was the 5-year plan item or the liaison item, but I know that I view those as kind of connected a bit, but I think we had brought up the idea of, and I'm fine with that, but also having maybe more sustained contact with different members, reaching out to a set number of committees or something and being like the point person for them. We talked about that at a previous meeting. I know I haven't seen a master plan committee meeting in a while, but I know that's what master plan had done for their goals, that they would have people email the committees, but also occasionally attend one of the other meetings to talk about the CPC, or, well, in our case, I guess it would be the CPC process or something like that. I don't know if that would be beneficial in terms of generating applications or understanding of CPA.
So that's a good point, Grant. I mean, that's another thing that we can do, and I can actually include in the email, is to ask committees if they have any questions, or, if it would be beneficial for a CPC member to come, to one of their meetings to answer questions. Would that suffice, Grant, if we put it all in this general email, and then committees that do, we can, talk about it and divvy them up? I mean,
I think that works.
do you think that works? Or we can just do it another way. We can just, at the next meeting, go through a list of all the boards and committees and just divvy them up, and each member can, reach out themselves. Whatever you guys feel more comfortable with. I mean, I'm all for, divvying up the responsibilities, but I'm happy initially to send it out, even to say that, a member will be in touch with you as well, to see if your future needs that you may have. I mean, whatever you guys think is the best way to start.
Yeah, I think a general email works to start, Lisa.
Okay.
And then I know that we have talked about maybe doing more kind of sustained outreach on our behalf. So maybe in the future we could explore that, at the next meeting or something like that.
Okay.
That idea of kind of actively reaching out to those committees and that kind of thing. If others are, agree with that, but one is more passive, kind of wait for it to come to you. I mean, obviously email people, but wait for them to get back to you versus like, I'd like to come and be on your agenda and talk to you about CPC or, that kind of thing.
Okay, so I'll do a general, I'll send out an email asking for them to think about projects, and then I'll say that, the CPC wants to continue to work with departments. It's very important for a 5-year plan, and, to think about these things, and a member will be reaching out to, attend a meeting and have a sit down. And then at our next meeting, I'll put together the list, and we can kind of go through the list and divvy them up for everybody, and then, everybody can do their own outreach from there. Go ahead, Freddie.
A simple starting place is every committee that has a seat at the table, that has a rep, could ask that their chair put an agenda item to discuss the CPA specifically, what projects or goals they have, and have those, because all of the identified uses of CPA funding, committees and commissions and boards have a seat at the table. Not all of them are filled, but you could start with the ones who are seated to actually have an actual agenda item, and then encourage the other ones to have a conversation, because, like historical, to put more, an agenda item, and then you have a discussion. What is the committee or the commission thinking of? Or the same with historical, I said historical, sorry. Recreation, open space doesn't have someone at the table, but we could put it on our agenda. Conservation doesn't have someone at the table, but they could put it on their agenda, and also to encourage them to get a rep if they can.
Yeah, and we can all do that. I think, Grant, you guys talk about it periodically, and so does Kristen as well. Future
Yeah,
projects.
On our agenda, it's more of like me giving an update on what CPC's been up to, but I think more of a brainstorming idea generation is a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, so we can all do that
Yeah.
besides me sending out this email asking. So we'll plan at our next meeting to kind of divvy it up and kind of go from there. I know when I put these on the agenda, it was just things we threw out at the end of last meeting without much detail of where we were going to go and what we were going to do. So that's what I was hoping we would do tonight. And we did that. So, okay. Ongoing discussion of open projects and discussion of signage, those go together. Ellen and Grant, did you have anything you wanted to update, or if not, that's okay too?
So the only other update was that we talked a little bit last time about the temporary sign. So I looked into that. For Kinder Group, we've bought like the vinyl signs that go up on the fence and in the outside St. Mark's. And so it's like a 2x4 vinyl sign running about $100 from Staples. So I feel like that's the kind of thing we could use, while the townhouse was under construction, the library, whatever it is, that, this work is being funded by however the wording that we pick. So I feel like we have a good sense of kind of the three different signage costs and options. We put together some of that example wording that other towns have used. So, support from the town of Southborough through the Community Preservation Act, something like that. So, yeah, I feel like we have a good handle on kind of the options. So we're happy to work on whatever next steps we need.
Okay, so maybe at our September meeting, we can actually take a look at the list, and maybe you and Grant could come up with some recommendations for each, and maybe we can get some of these signs ordered and, really start closing these out. That would be really fabulous. So the 2x4 sign would be for the golf course, which is ongoing, for the irrigation system, and the,
Trails?
I'll go through which open projects could use
well, should only be a couple. What did we just approve at the
Fence.
list?
The fence,
I'm sorry?
The common railing.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll go through and we'll do that, and then hopefully at the end of the September meeting, we'll have an idea and we can just get some of these signs ordered, and that would be great.
Great.
Close out some of these projects.
And so one other sign question I had just that came to mind when Kat was here is, so if there's a project that is involving already putting up signs, and I know we've talked a little bit about sign fatigue, especially some of the historical projects, is that an opportunity to ask them to just add a line to the sign that they're already putting up? Or do we really want to maintain our own kind of freestanding sign at each project?
I mean, is it a matter of timing? Because typically, like, do we want the signs up literally when they break ground, whereas their signage typically comes like in the last phases?
So I think that's like the vinyl sign would be while something's under construction, and then when there's a permanent sign.
Oh, okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
No, there's a lot of signs, so I think it's, yeah. Yeah, just
That's,
out of
that's
curiosity.
a good question. Maybe when Cat comes in September, but I think that's another good project to put some type of signage up at, because people are walking those trails and stuff now, so that would be a good one to add to the list. Katie, do you have anything you want to add? Grant?
Nope.
Okay, Claire?
So I don't know enough about this, but is there some kind of a standard with these signs, like, that stays after the project has been done, just kind of to,
Do you want to answer that, or do you want me to?
you know, just show that, how this particular project got funded?
Sure, so there's a document that is in, I'm honestly not sure which meeting it was. I think our last meeting, a brief Word document that Grant and I put together that shows examples of what other towns do. So the expectation is that there's a permanent sign at the end of a project indicating that it was supported
Got it.
by the
Okay,
community
got
with CPC funds. So that shows, it's, a brief sentence, basically. So,
Right.
yeah, that Word document's in there.
Okay, thanks,
So
that
it's-
answers my
Claire,
question.
It's like a phase 1, phase 2. During construction, as Ellen said, it's like a 2x4 vinyl
Yeah,
sign.
understood, yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll
Okay,
put that on
thanks.
for September.
Thanks,
and
guys.
Hopefully, we will, Freddie, did you want to add anything? Gotta hit your button.
When you were talking about a line on an existing sign and sign pollution and all of that, there is some great value to, I go into, you're traveling, you're on vacation, and you see, big signs saying this project was, proud of it, funded by the citizens of this town through the Community Preservation Act. Newton does it, Orleans does it, many towns, and you'll start seeing these wonderful projects, and it's a way of giving the Community Preservation Act value for people who have no idea that their funds are, except for at your annual meeting, if you happen, people see the approved projects, they have no idea of the breadth and the just fantastic projects that are funded because of this, through the taxpayers' choice to participate in this program. So a little, sometimes a little sign, little sentence at the bottom of another sign is that accomplishing what you want? And you need to think about that. And, maybe you don't want big signs, but maybe I'll take some pictures to show you, but it really makes you value what the Community Preservation Act is. And it also helps keep it in people's mind that it's something worth continuing to fund.
Lisa, you had mentioned that the committee would, or I believe you had said that the committee would buy the sign. Is that the process for how this works? That or do we recommend or require the wording and the type and have the applicant actually go through the purchasing of it? Like, how do we purchase the sign and or, using their funds, or like who is actually doing this?
So I'm going to let Freddie answer the historical piece, but in closing out the projects on the list that we have, all of these accounts have money in it, and they're just missing the sign piece. So, and Freddie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for these older ones that go back to like 2010, I think it is, for the triangle, it's missing a sign, so the funds are there for us to do it.
No, I understand, but I believe the applicants are the ones who spend the money, right? So I know that it's required and we want them to do it, but can we actually dip into the accounts and spend that money for them? That's where I'm getting confused.
So, community preservation committees had great intention, and maybe this was a little bit of a loophole. The applicant was supposed to fund and put the signs up. Didn't happen.
Is that a policy, the law?
There's no law. It is part of, if you read every single application, it was a requirement that, and anytime we had an MOU or an expectation or the conversation didn't get done, the question is, the funds were in the account for that project. The project is not completed to return the funds until the sign is up. Therefore, now, I would say the proper way to do it is to discuss with the project applicant if they're still around or existing, and you can't just go, putting these signs up on, saving the triangle, whose property is that? The town. So that under the Board of Selectmen or Recreation or Conservation when you have a park. So you kind of need, because there was a Triangle Committee, Triangle Park Committee, this is down on Southville, right? Talking about the same park. That committee's no longer in existence. So this didn't get done, there's funds left in the account, so it is now up to the CPC to say these signs were required, so we shouldn't close, in the past they have decided, we shouldn't close out the project until the signs go up. So it means it's work for the CPC members to find out who they need to talk to get the sign up, just like the All Wars Memorial, and you're not going to just go up and blast a sign there on the town common, right? And we had worked with them before that it was going to be an engraved stone, so you need to, for some reason, when they had the engraving done, that didn't happen. So some of these things, the funds were left aside to do these signage, and so it's complicated, and it's up to the committee to decide how to move forward, but I don't think you can just go plop a sign on, on property that somebody else has oversight of. So,
That's kind of what I was getting at in terms of, I know we talked previously about kind of, I don't know, negotiating or discussing this with people. I think it makes it easier if we present the sign to them and say, here's the language, we made it easy, we've had this vendor, we know how much it costs, all this stuff, and we can present that to someone. I think that takes, we did all the legwork, or we will have done all the legwork on that, and so hopefully it'll make it more palatable for them to actually to do it, so they don't have to look into all of that. But that's what I was wondering about in terms of actually implementing this. Thanks.
So when someone submits an application and a sign is required, are the funds for that sign not included? Are you saying that the applicants over and above their CPC, and again, these are all old and historical, so, I mean, historical in the sense that, they're 15 years, old. So so Freddie, I'm just asking you, historically, were funds to cover these signs included within the application? Or are you saying we need to go to these applicants and say, hey, you need to pony up for a sign 15 years later?
what I'm suggesting is that I don't know that a line item was included in some of these projects, but if a project has $6,000 left and a sign is required, I think allocating that fund to complete the project for the sign falls within the requirement of that project being completed. It's not like, so say it was a recreation project. Recreation doesn't have to go out and buy a sign in addition to, the funds are there.
Well, that's what I was asking.
So if there's no projects out there with zero balance that you're looking at requiring a sign, right? So there's money in the account. It's just is the question who buys the sign? You know, who does the work to order it and make sure it goes up? Or,
I think that's what Grant was asking.
right,
Well, I think my only point is that we can't force, or we can't actually, as a committee, we can't spend the funds on behalf of the applicants, right? We recommend to town meeting, manage it with the treasurer, the funds with
no,
the treasurer.
I think you can. The way the warrant articles were written, I think the committee could. You might want to double check that. But they said, the funds are dispersed under the authority of the Community Preservation Committee. So if a sign wasn't done and a sign is needed and there's funds there, I just don't think you're going to want to just pretend it was a tennis court. You don't want recreation going out and seeing a big sign on their tennis court they didn't know about. And it would probably be, if they would be the ones to facilitate getting it installed, that would be the way to do it. But if you have 20 signs, just pretend, I'm making that number up, maybe the CPC just orders them and has somebody go out and put them up at all the places, talk to the people, say we're adding this sign, is required, and then just get it done in one fell swoop. If possible, sorry, if possible.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like that's part of the should be part of the conversation in September is kind of going through, like you said, some of these projects were from committees that haven't existed in over a decade. So it's kind of who is currently the steward of whatever this thing is, and how do we track them down? But on the process side, I do feel like if kind of we're in charge of ordering the signs, that makes things a lot easier. And then we're in charge of reaching out to whoever it is who's in charge of that park or cemetery or building and figuring out how they want to go about installing this. Because I feel a large number of these will probably be town property. So if we can only go once to DPW or the select, whoever it is, and have one conversation about 8 signs versus every couple of weeks showing up with another sign. I think it makes sense to kind of get all the information we need in one place.
So I'll go through the list, and any that are town signs, I'll have a conversation with the town administrator. And, I'm sure once we decide on what we're going to do and the signage, we can invite them again. Because, Kristen, there's a few in there for recreation as well. So, I guess we invite them to the meeting and say, this is what we're looking to do. And,
Because I think we also have to know how they're going to be attached to things, right? Does this sign need a pole? Is it going on the building? Is it going on yeah. So I think there's more details that we need from some of these, not really applicants anymore, but whoever's in charge of.
so again, we'll invite them to our, next meeting in September. And hopefully, again, the goal is to get some of these closed out because they're so old. So, as efficiently, go ahead, Grant.
Oh, sorry, it's hard on Zoom.
You're fine.
And if they were private applicants, I think that even makes it more complicated, right? Because
It does.
you definitely can't just go by and put up a sign on their property or,
Right, so I'll go through the list again, and, I'll do some more legwork, and I'll be putting some stuff in the Dropbox, so I'll create the Dropbox for our next meeting now, and, as I have conversations and stuff, I'll put those in there. So we'll plan on September being a big signage meeting, so.
Can I make one suggestion? That because this is something that sort of fell through the cracks, that when you go through the application process, that is the time to discuss with the applicant what kind of sign the CPC would like to see, and, make that agreement, and make sure there's a cost item associated with it in the grant, so that you don't run into this after the fact, and no one, like, what do you mean I need a sign? And, make it a bigger part of the actual application.
And what I'd like to do is, again, I'm a big process person. I like to see things in a book so people are very clear on what they need to do. So I think we probably should put together a process for signage as well. It benefits future CPC members, so you're not looking back, and it benefits the applicants as well. So everybody knows what the expectation is. Whether it's something we maybe add to the handbook, as we move forward. But again, I think it needs to be memorialized in writing. I just think again, for me, it's a better process that way. But okay, so we'll do that for September.
Lisa, Claire's hand is
I'm
up.
sorry, I didn't see that. Go ahead, Claire.
Oh, thanks very much. I couldn't support you more on the value of the signage, and I'm more than glad to help out with anything that I can do. It is so important to make people realize what CPC money does.
Yeah.
So I totally support it 100%. And I have some ideas on it that I'm very, very glad to talk to whoever wants to move ahead with this.
Awesome. Thank you, Claire. Much appreciated. We'll have a nice discussion on it in September. Okay. So that leads us next to the consultant contract renewal. So what I had put together is basically I took the job description from last year and I updated it. The committee has become a lot more active in things. So some of the things that were on the last job description, I've taken off because the committee has kind of just done some of those things. So a lot of it's similar. I talked to Freddie and we redid the priority projects going into the next fiscal year. I mean, obviously, closing out, it's not just us saying we want to close them out. There's a whole process on the other end that Freddie does as well with getting sign-offs and whatnot and dealing with accounting. We kind of talked about the grant agreement, MOU, letters of expectations, helping get those done, finalize the process for closing out bonds on completed projects. And I think the next one is really important, help educate us about the bonding process and the bonding capacity, because I myself do not totally understand it. So it would just be good for us. So I put that as a goal. And then obviously plan the annual forum. There's a lot that goes into that. So this is what I came up with because Freddie's contract is up. So I guess this is a two-phase question. So one, I want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with the job description. And if they think that there's anything that needs to be added, why don't we start there as phase one? Katie, did you have anything you want to add to it, or okay. Ellen?
Do we want to include anything on the 5-year plan, or does that feel more like an internal process?
I think listing it as want to work towards it.
Yeah, not to have one done in the next year, but I think to
Okay, under
get it back on
priority
our radar.
projects?
Just a conversation to have, since we've been kind of paying more attention to this recently.
Okay, so continue conversation on 5-year plan?
And happy to hear other people's.
How about an outline or something more than just conversation?
If this is a job description and with Lisa's, last point about like, okay, let's think about if we're not all here, next time we're hiring or filling this role. I do like what you're saying, Ellen, and it might be something more like, support the committee in keeping an up-to-date 5-year, plan, because it's just as much on us, right, as that person. So I'd hate to put too much weight on it, because if the committee fails to show up and do the 5-year plan, but it'd be good if we had someone, who knew that, hey, this is an expectation. I have to make sure this is up to date, and they're making sure that the committee is kind of revisiting it often.
That's great. So support committee on up-to-date 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want that under priority or just regular operating duties?
I think
Regular.
regular operating,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
I'm
Perfect. Okay, Ellen, do you have anything else?
No, that was it, and thank you for that wording, Kristen, I like that.
Yeah, that was good. Kristen, did you have anything else?
no.
Okay, Grant?
I don't have anything else in the description. I was just wondering, is the pay and like the timeline of the contract, is that separate from the description in terms of the pay rate and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so the
Okay.
Town administrator is the only one that can sign the contracts. So the contract would be the same as it was last year. I can certainly get a copy of that, Grant, and I can put it in the Dropbox. It would be at the same, what's it, 50, I don't have the contract in front of me, $50,
An hour is the standard rate.
yeah.
Town for construction.
Well, the only reason I brought it up is that the top of the document says responsibilities and pay rate, but I didn't see the pay rate information in there, so I wasn't sure if we should take out and pay rate, or if that was supposed to be
Okay.
part of it. But in terms of the description itself, I think it's fine.
Okay, so yeah, so this is just the description for now, so.
Okay.
Okay. Claire, did you want to add anything to the job description?
No, not adding to the job description. My question is, and we're not being asked, the way I understand it, we're not being asked to vote on this tonight, is the contract that was put in the Dropbox is different from the contract that, it's a job description.
Right.
Which is different from the contract that would be
Correct.
asked.
I misworded when I created the folder,
And-
Claire.
Yeah, no, and I guess the question that I have is, as everybody knows, CPC is going to be reviewed by the select board as one of their goals. My question is, and I totally support the position. My question is, have I missed anywhere where the quarterly reports or half-year reports have been posted online?
The quarterly reports for, like the,
So essentially, we have a contract person,
yeah,
and I have contracts with the town with different things that I do, and it includes reporting. My question is, where are these reports?
so in the past contracts, that wasn't a requirement, Claire, because their focus is to attend the meetings, prep for the meetings,
Yeah, okay,
you know,
all right,
create the
yeah,
annual reports. But I did add, if you'll notice, the second to the last bullet under regular operating duties, I add, track funded projects and communicate with project managers on a quarterly basis for updates. That's something new that wasn't in the last job description.
Okay, and that is clearly understood by everybody in terms of what's required?
It's tracking the projects and working with the project managers on a quarterly basis, telling us an update
Okay.
on the
All right.
projects.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So if everybody's good with the job description, so then that takes us to the contract. So in the past, since I've been on CPC, I don't believe, I think we just agreed to the terms of the contract, and then Mark crafted the contract, and we voted to, because I have the vote from last year, and it was just to approve the contracts, but I don't think we saw the contracts last year.
I believe we, well,
And that's my issue, Lisa.
That's fine. We can, I need to put we need to, maybe we'll have to meet in August, because currently
Yeah.
Freddie's not on a contract. So
Right.
we need her to be able to get paid. So I will work with
Absolutely.
Mark. I'll have
Yeah.
him craft the contract, and if we need to, just a quick Zoom meeting in August so we can get it voted, and, you know, she can be able to submit her hours. Okay.
Absolutely,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
I'm not sure if you're looking at the contract before it's signed, because
Yes.
there's an issue with the contract in that they have a standard form that is not really applicable to the job. And what happened is, both Betsy and I, which had the same form of a contract, and this has been several years now, had to go to an attorney to look at it, who said, you'd be out of your mind to sign that. And what we had to do is go through most of the contract and write NA and initial it throughout the contract. So it's multiple pages, and there's multiple NA, doesn't apply with our signature, and that's what we have submitted every year. And, you know, there was nothing we could do, or in the past, this was with Ben, I believe, as chair, to make it, have it be a contract that was actually relating to the job we were doing. So it's a standard form for, I mean, the first one we got was for being a contractor, you know, shovel in the ground kind of contract, and which, you know, we did get that changed to something else, but we put a lot of, so you can see the contract, which is pages long, which is not something I would sign, or that has been signed in the past as written.
So let me talk to Mark, let me get a copy of the last contract that Freddie signed, and nothing is changing in the contract itself. So let me get that contract, so we'll know what's going to be NA, and we can take a position on what, and our vote will be based on what she signed last year.
And yes, I totally agree with everything that Freddie has said. And the reason is because I have several contracts with the town. She is correct that the town has a one-size-fits-all contract, which is a little bit bizarre to me, but that's not the purpose of our, substance of our meeting tonight. I totally agree with what she said. And I think that it needs to be taken a look at in terms of what is expected of the contractor. Only because at some point in time, this is going to be questioned. And I want to make sure that the CPC understands what the town contract is and what actually is the option that has been given to Freddie as a contractor.
So Claire, the job description that you have goes to the town administrator, and it's attached as part of the contract. So it's
I
very,
understand that,
okay,
but what Freddie says is exactly true, that there's stuff in there which says that she has to line out because it's not applicable, okay? My only correction on this is if the contract had some type of clause in it, like you said, Lisa, which is exactly what needed to be added, some type of reporting mechanism, then when whoever's reviewing whether CPC will live on or not will be able to say, oh, okay, well, they have a contractor that's paid from CPA funds and has some stipulations in it. But does anybody have any questions on that?
no. But I think, Claire, part of what you're talking about is further on the agenda regarding the select board's
Oh,
meeting and the
okay,
discussion
that's
that's going to
fine.
take place.
Yep.
So that's all. I don't want to
Okay.
say too much under
Okay.
this.
Yeah, that's fine.
So what I'll do is I will talk to Mark. I'll get a copy of the old contract so we can all see what's Xed out, what's going to be Xed out on this contract as well. And then that, along with the job description, we can take a vote on.
Yep,
Does that?
okay.
Right. And just to be clear, the NAs are nothing to do with the job description for this
Right.
particular job. They're to do with stuff that has nothing to do with, and it's generic, written, it's not specific to,
And Freddie, you're exactly correct, because I've been given the same kind of contracts. And I totally agree with you.
so.
Okay. So that actually brings us right into the next item, Claire. You kind of just walked me right into that one. So we're going to do, I'm going to do an update, a chair's report regarding the CPC funding, and then I'm going to take it another step further to set next meeting, because it's all going to tie in together. So I'm going to do, under chair's report, B first, because that one's a lot less complicated than the other. So I had reached out to John Parent, and he gave me a letter just saying that he's writing to provide a brief update regarding the status of the preservation restrictions related to the CPC-funded restoration projects at the Southborough Library and Townhouse. The town has been working with Spencer Preservation Group, Preservation Worcester, and legal counsel on the drafting of said PRs. The draft documents are nearly complete, and I anticipate the PRs will be signed, filed, and in full force and effect by the end of summer. Should you have any questions, let us know. So that was one of the things that you had tasked me with trying to find out. So that's the update on the townhouse, which is good stuff. The next one I had reached out to, so I actually have two emails. I had reached out to Selectman Hamilton, and I told him that we were meeting tonight, and I invited him to attend to start a discussion and learn more about the Select Board's goal regarding CPC, and if there was any documents or anything he wanted to share. His response to me on that email was, while the Select Board has put the CPC on its goals agenda, it has taken no position with respect to the status of the CPA, whether to keep or drop the program or change the rate of taxation. They have put this on the radar for discussion and possible inclusion at a future town meeting. I think it would be premature for me to come and meet with the CPC prior to the Select Board having a position on the matter. I would encourage CPC to attend and participate in discussions as they come up. So I then got an email today from Mr. Hamilton. I asked the chair to put the CPA on the agenda for the next Select Board meeting, which is 8/19. I'll let you know the timing. I responded back to him, thanking him for his note and wanting to know what the scope of the meeting was before I asked CPC, as we weren't planning on meeting in August. And I said we'd be happy to add him to our agenda in September, to have a discussion. His response back was the Select Board, as part of its goal-setting process, identified review of our participation in the CPA in light of the declining reimbursement rates, overall tax burden, administrative costs, and spending priorities. The decision would center around whether the Select Board would want to bring an article before town meeting addressing our participation in the CPA, given that the special town meeting has been moved up a week, beginning a review in August is more timely. So that's an update. I'm going to give you my thoughts, and then we'll kind of go around to everybody. So Mr. Hamilton is one member of the Select Board. We know from the past there's been conversations with another Select Board member who talked about increasing the rate. My personal take on this meeting is I don't know that there's anything we could add to a conversation on this. Again, my 2 cents. I think it's a discussion the Select Board have to have. I think if the Select Board, which I doubt, I could be wrong, if the Select Board decide to take to town meeting a warrant article, I think our job is to not argue, but show town meeting. The discussion should be with us in town meeting, the importance of CPC and what we do. The Select Board all know what we do. They know the revenues that come in. So I don't know that we could add anything to their discussion. I think they need to decide what, again, my 2 cents, they need to decide what they want to do. And if they choose to go forward with an article, I think we've got a lot of information behind us of the importance of CPC. I actually went back and I took a look at some of the slides, and there were like 6 slides in particular. There was the one that showed the average taxpayer, what they actually pay for CPC. There's a slide that shows since inception, over $6.1 million has been put into CPC by the taxpayers, and they got a $2.5 million return. And then the list of projects and the pictures. So my suggestion would be to send the Select Board a note and say, we know you're discussing this, but we'd like you to keep some of these thoughts in mind and send them those particular slides. And ask that it be put in the packet for the discussion. So again, the slides are so telling. Look at the list of what CPC is funded in this town, outside of the townhouse and the library. Look at the amazing things that have been done, Chestnut Hill Farm, all of the recreation things that have been done. So I don't think we need to go and justify CPC to the Select Board, because obviously, they know what we do. They're certainly entitled to their own opinions as to the worthiness of CPC. I tend to believe, and I think town meeting would agree, that there's a lot of projects that probably never would have gotten done had it gone through the regular budget process. So that's my suggestion. Certainly anybody is able to attend if they so choose. I don't think it's a good idea for CPC as a whole to go, but if the group wants to, I'm happy to set a meeting. I think we let them have their discussion, and then we work towards educating the voters at town meeting and showing them the value that they're getting for their dollar. Where else, even last year, where else are you going to get an 18% return on your money? It's just not going to happen. So again, I have great hope that through the Select Board discussion that we're not going to have to prepare anything for town meeting. I'm hopeful. So I'll just leave it at that, and we'll go down the line, and I'd love to hear everybody else's thoughts as well. Katie.
So Lisa, I think you're absolutely right. I think that unless we get an invitation to the table, that participation probably isn't welcome from us. If they have questions, I really hope that they do reach out. I think it's good to keep a pulse on it, obviously, but in the end, it's going to be about education and showing our value, which is great. I don't think a lot of people pay attention, and that's okay. But like you said, you guys have done some incredible things that people don't know about, and I think I agree 100% too that a lot of these projects just wouldn't get done. We see that with projects that need to get done, that just don't get done. So I agree.
Thank you. Ellen?
Yep, I agree as well. Not too much to add differently than Katie. I think you said it great, as did you, Lisa. Yeah, I don't know that it would be a fruitful discussion necessarily. So I think to be focusing on the positive work of the committee, the positive work of these funds over the years for a potential town meeting conversation, I think is a more productive and positive use of our time. So thank you.
Thank you. Grant?
Yeah, I think that if we don't attend, it would be important to send that letter or email that you were talking about, Lisa. So I think I would be in support of that. The only thing that gives me pause about not attending is that I know that in previous conversations with the select board about CPA or CPC, that there's been, maybe not so far as misinformation, but some sort of disagreement over the facts, shall we say, and not to get in an argument with them, but I think there could be value in having someone there to refute or to provide clarity on what we do, that kind of thing. But if we want to do it in written form, I understand that.
Thank you. Kristen?
I'll just echo what Grant said. I couldn't agree more. I think we are not doing ourselves any favor not having any representation there. I will go so far as saying too often when committees aren't represented, there tends to be, not necessarily intentionally, but facts misstated, figures misstated, et cetera. So I'm a little surprised, Mr. Hamilton didn't want to have discussion. My understanding, and I'm pretty sure I heard it, was he was, designated as the owner of that goal, if you will. So understand, I as a citizen am curious, where he thinks where else those funds would go, et cetera. But that aside, I think, if we could appoint someone to kind of stay a little bit closer to this, to attend the meetings when the board is discussing this, just to kind of keep a pulse on things and making sure that we are there real time to fact check, unfortunately, just because someone might watch the meeting, but rarely is anyone looking for the follow-up where we say, well, wait a second, those figures may not be correct. I'm not trying to promote that anyone would do anything intentionally. It's just that history shows that every committee is best represented when that committee or something they're working on is addressed.
Okay, thank you. And I'll have a suggestion, Claire, but Kristen, I want to go to Claire. I want to hear from Claire first.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Claire. Claire, do you want to add anything? You're muted, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I totally agree with particularly what you and Katie said. It's all about the numbers. So I am more than glad you had mentioned 18%. I think that needs to be explained so that people can understand it. And I'm more than glad to work with you on that to provide any of the Excel, whatever, to make people believe that.
Okay, thank you. So we're kind of in a quandary. I see both sides, and I know about misinformation, Grant, and Kristen. I just worry that us going makes us a target sitting there, and I don't want to get into a shouting match about that. I don't want that to be what CPC is about. That's my concern. If we end up having to go to town meeting, I don't want people to see this video of all this negativeness of us sitting there getting berated, or us trying to respond back, and it becoming a contentious conversation. I'm happy to go. I will go. And
So Lisa, I just want to clarify, I don't mean CPC getting on the formal agenda. I just mean somebody should be there listening in the audience should the need for public comment, perhaps to clarify something comes up. That's all.
Okay, but I think, Kristen, it's going to go further than that. It's not just going to be somebody sitting there. I think that you're going to be called to the front table, and a lot of diatribe is going to take place. But it's fine. If the committee wants somebody to go, then...
I don't want that either.
Yeah.
I just meant more just in kind of like a just in case type of scenario, someone's on the Zoom there in case, God forbid, we're like, well, wait a second, no, like.
I'll just say that I don't feel particularly strongly about this, so I'm fine with just doing what you said, Lisa, about a letter, and if that's the will of the committee, then that's fine with me. I only wanted to raise it as a concern that I've seen it in previous meetings where when people aren't present, that sometimes things can go south. It's just a concern that I have, but hopefully it doesn't come to pass. So I'm fine with whatever you said about sending those slides and perhaps an email or a letter or something in lieu of attending.
So, I mean, if the committee wants, I'm happy to go. I think sending the documentation and having it in the packet is key. And like I said, it's you know what? I actually have a document. Katie, if I email it to you, can you put it up? Let me do that real quick. If everybody has 2 more seconds, I apologize. I kind of put together something, of the screenshots that I was talking about. So let me just do that and send that to Katie really quick, if you don't mind, Katie. Katie's the best, as always. Her and Grant are like my go-to people here. All right, and I didn't put it there, of course not. I put it here. Okay. Let me go. Okay, let me add it. Browser's computer. Thank you very much. There it is. Oh my gosh, look at that. I actually did it. And okay. And while this is sending, so my intention was just to say, that we, oh, please wait, attachments are still loading. Thank you, appreciate that. That we know that there's a discussion on the agenda, but we thought some important facts for the committee to have in advance of the meeting. And I want a subject. I'll just write Katie, how's that? In advance of the meeting, we thought it was important, and we request that it be in the packet, and if need be, shown as an attachment at the meeting. Okay, I just sent it. And again, that's basically what I'm going to say, and then I'm just going to include these slides. I just thought that.
Forum, right?
I'm sorry, Grant? What?
The slides are the ones from the
They're
public
from the
forum.
forum, they're specific
Yeah.
slides, yep. So I don't want to include the whole thing, but I thought, and Katie will bring it up, I thought these slides, and again, I want the public to see these slides, no matter what the discussion is. I want them to understand it's, like on this slide, it's not 1% of the value of your house, it's 1% of your taxes. So again, I think for people to understand, you're talking $118, and the return that you're getting. Okay, can you go to the next one? So it's this one, which I think is so strong. I mean, where else are you going to get a return like that on any money? And then you can, go ahead, Katie, just skim through the rest. The rest were just the projects. And again, if people need to see these and all of the good things that were done. And then these were just some of the pictures that we included. I thought that they were important as well. So if the committee's willing, I'll submit this. I mean, I will go. Kristen, if you want to go with me. But I will just let the chair know that, we'd like, this is CPC's response to doing away with CPC and kind of leaving it. Go ahead. What do you mean, what it cost you?
I think that sounds great.
Yeah, it's the first slide. No, it's fine. Go ahead. If Katie will go back. That was what I was going to start with right there. So, again, that was my intent. The more I thought about it, but I mean, I'll be happy to go and just tell them. I don't plan on. Go ahead.
If the rest of the committee, I'm like Grant, I unfortunately, I have that, historical experience that has me leery, but I'm fine with the approach that you're taking.
Again, I'll just say if the committee thinks somebody should be there, I'd be happy to go, and if Kristen wanted to join me, then we could certainly do that too. I just think but make very clear, we're not here to argue, we're not here to debate. We sent in a package that shows exactly, the value of CPC. Unless you have a specific question, then we're just here to watch. And
Yeah.
I'm happy to say that as well at the meeting if he wants to go or, I shouldn't say he, I take that back. If the select board want to go toe-to-toe on something, unless we deem it really worth having a discussion on, I don't want to talk about project closeouts, happy to talk about that,
Right.
actually, because that's already in the works. So, but I think their discussion should be about the value of CPC. So, again, I'd be happy to go, and if Kristen is vice chair, you'd like to join me,
Sure.
if the committee wants us to do that, again, I still think it opens a door, but I understand there's going to be misinformation that's said. And that's what's going to live out there in the public. I get it. So if the committee wants, I will go. I will leave it up to you guys to decide. I'm happy to do it because, I feel very strongly about the value of CPC, and I have no problem getting up and speaking about it.
So can I just ask, as a clarification from the email that you received,
Yes.
was there an invitation to go,
No.
or it was a notification that this is being discussed?
So I will read you exactly what was said.
Thank you.
I asked the chair to put the CPA on the agenda for the next select board meeting, which is on 8/19. I will let you know the timing when it's a little clearer. So initially, I took that as well. Maybe we'll be invited, and that's when I said, you can come to our meeting. And that's when I got that, they're basically looking to decide whether they want to do a town meeting article to do away with CPA. So, no, technically, we weren't invited. No.
So I will say that I have seen in other boards and committees that if you don't show up, there's this assumption that you agree or you don't have any objections. So I don't feel strongly either way, but maybe that's put in the email that, we're not coming because we're going to watch it later. We don't want to, discuss anything tonight, but we're in support of, staying active.
Okay, Ellen? And I hate to spend a ton of time on this, but it's just, again, it is a big deal, ultimately. I mean, I am happy to go to town meeting and stand on town meeting floor and talk about CPC and the value and what people have gotten and the projects that never would have gotten done without CPC. For such every dollar counts, and I understand that, but for the average home, $118 a year is small amounts of money. How many families use the Fayville playground? How many families use South Union playground, which that was funded by CPC, correct? So let's just look at that alone. Pickleball. So as a family with children, for $118 a year, you got two really incredible playgrounds. Basketball courts, pickleball courts, So again, there's tremendous value. I think town meeting will be very supportive of CPC, my 2 cents. But again, we don't know what the select board's going to do. We don't know what the vote's going to be. So, go ahead.
One other question, if you want, for this meeting, it might be premature, but the reality is, if you get rid of the CPA Act, you are still obligated to pay the bonds. So you're not going to have just say roughly 20% return on your CPA tax dollars in the state distribution. Even if it goes lower, that does cut down how much we are paying. Those bonds will have to come out of your tax dollars.
For 20 years. The townhouse hasn't been fully bonded yet, has it? It's
Well, some of it
some
hasn't.
of it, okay.
But I could, if you want, I could put that together, or is that something more for the future and just say, not mention it, or is that more of the nitty-gritty when it gets, if it's on the warrant article, but it's something to be aware of, that you are still paying those bonds off out of municipal money without a kick-in.
That is something we could certainly just highlight by a comment. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty. I think that's a town meeting thing. I think when they say my $118 is going away, but now we've got bonds totaling X number of dollars for the next 20 years, you're going to be paying probably more than the $118 ultimately. So, and you're going to lose a match. And this year, Stuart has already sent out the email that I forwarded to everybody, the update. It's already higher than it was last year. They're already anticipating it being higher than 18%. So, again, I'm just going to we'll go down the line. I'll have everybody say go or stay, and we'll just go from there. I will go if I have to go. But Katie, go or stay?
I say stay.
Okay. Ellen?
Stay.
Okay. Kristen?
Let Grant go for it.
Okay, Grant?
I'm gonna go with the committee. I mean, the truth be told, you know, and I don't know what, that's a crazy week, right? Like leading up to the start of school. So I will say that, as I tend to do, I'd probably join in the audience. I won't speak ever on behalf of the commission ever, but just to listen and be present and take note. Not in person, I'd be calling in.
Okay, Grant?
I know I'm in the minority, but I think go just because I think we'll get accused of not caring or something if we're not there and that kind of thing. So that's fine.
So maybe one of the things I'll do is I will listen in and I will raise my hand at the end and say, you know, the CPC wasn't invited or this is a select board discussion. You guys got to decide what you want to do. But and I could say there's a lot of inaccurate information that was shared tonight that will be addressed at the next CPC meeting.
If
I mean,
there's
well, if there's inaccurate.
Yeah, and I would just say too, this is kind of my main hesitation about all of it. Is so I don't know if in a way that could be interpreted as an invitation. So I feel like if we start to get into
Yeah.
we weren't invited, so we didn't go, then they can
Got
say,
it.
well, we did invite you. So I think it's just
Okay.
skipping over all of the little details, sharing what you plan to share
Yep.
in an email that says, you know, we understand and we're informed that this conversation is happening at
Right.
the select board.
Yep.
We request that this information is included in your packet and shown if necessary.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Claire, your thoughts? I always forget. her comments.
Thanks. I think it is incumbent on us as a committee to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward. Nobody's going to, that's what we have to do. Because the way everything is being looked at now is financially. So however CPC can present itself as an asset to the town, works for it.
So on that point, Claire, I think that's where I'm going to go with the letter, that we know there's an agenda item. We
Yep.
would like to have CPC represented through this email and these documents to know that, you know, CPC is not in support. We can take we can't take a vote because it's not on the agenda. I was going to say we could take an official vote, but I'll just say, the CPC did a straw poll. Let's do a straw poll. Is anyone in favor of doing away with CPC? CPA, sorry. Okay, that's all I need to know. You know, the committee discussed it and did a straw poll, and we felt it was important that you have this information, and please share this information during your meeting. It's their potential warrant article and their discussion, so. Okay, if everybody's okay, that's what
Yep.
we'll do.
Sounds good.
And obviously, I mean, any member, I can't tell you not to attend a meeting. You know, I'm certainly not going to do that. But if you do attend, just be prepared is all. Okay? Okay, so that's that. That's those two updates. Next is, we had put in the Dropbox the membership dues and the email, I got it, from the coalition. I'm certainly in favor of continuing. I think they've provided tremendous value to us, especially the last year. And I should have said this during the prior discussion as well when we talked about the consultant's contract, that, and I meant to say this, that there was a lot of overturn, I guess, if you will, this year with Ben leaving and having the applications open so late. I think Freddie provided a tremendous service to us all. So I meant to say that, and I'm sorry I didn't, Freddie, when we discussed the job description. I think it would have been very hard going into town meeting and everything else without some of the guidance that Freddie gave us. You know, we're a fairly new committee. So again, I just wanted to say that to the prior discussion, and I didn't, and I apologize, Freddie. So again, coalition. So we need to take a vote. If I would hope that everybody would still want to continue with the access that we get through the coalition.
Can I jump in?
Go ahead, Freddie.
And for some of the newer members to understand, you might have heard during discussions about projects or questions that we go and contact the coalition, and they give us feedback and information. And the coalition is made up of members from all of the top organizations in the state of the different interests of the Community Preservation Act. So the top housing organizations, conservation organizations, historical organizations. And that's the coalition, but then they have staff, which is Stuart, who attends regularly with the meetings with these experts, and he has their, numbers on speed dial, and they regularly meet and discuss how the CPA is implemented and other things. But another really important role they play, they are a lobbyist. I don't know if that's the correct term, but they can lobby at the State House, and they advocate on keeping the state distribution to the communities as high as possible. So they are constantly, advocating that, and the distribution is always in flux, because as you get new communities or cities signing on, that's more money going out. And then it's also dependent on a surcharge on deeds. When you purchase a home, the deed has a percent, like a $20, I think it is, flat fee that goes into the fund that gets sent out to the different communities and divided up. So you always get your share, but if it's a hot housing market, then the money's going in faster. So, but in a low housing market, and maybe as more communities got on, they have worked hard to keep the distribution high. But not only that, they then lobby at the end of the year, when there's extra cash left in the budget, to get some of that allocated. It's like another round of funds to come back. So they're looking after the best interest of keeping the match, and it's not called the match, it's the state distribution, which, is against your surcharge. But, so they do a valuable service, and not just providing information when you have a request and, how does this work, or how can we get this done better. They also are working to keep the match up as pretty high as they can.
Okay, that being said, does anyone have any issue with renewing our dues for another year with the coalition? I'm hearing and seeing none. So, do I have a motion to approve the Community Preservation Coalition dues for fiscal year '26 annual membership of $1,750?
So moved.
Okay, I think that was Grant. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, we have to do roll call vote. All in favor? Katie?
Katie, aye.
Ellen?
Aye.
Kristen? Oh, you can't, sorry. Grant?
Aye.
Claire?
Aye.
And Lisa, aye. Okay, thank you very much. We'll get that taken care of. Did everybody have a chance to, I have 2 more sets of minutes that I'm just finishing up. They'll be for our next meeting. Did anyone have a chance to go through the minutes from 3:17 and 5:22?
I'm sorry, I'm a sinner. I did not.
Okay.
I did not either,
Okay,
unfortunately.
so then we'll just table them. I mean, the 3:17 at this point.
Lisa, should we, just because,
I'll
In
put a
other-
draft out. What I'll do is I'll
Okay,
send
well-
in the draft.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
No, that's fine, Kristen.
I had the
And I'm
most
fine
minor
with-
edits from 3:17, so I don't know if
I'm
we're.
fine with taking a vote on it tonight if we would just want to get it done. I just didn't have a chance to do it.
Okay, Katie, can you bring up the minutes from so it's 3:17, Ellen?
Yep.
Okay. You weren't at that meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was going to abstain, but I still, I
Totally
mean, I
fine.
had
That's
like
Totally fine.
a small list of
No, no,
edits
no.
because I know we
Totally
want to
fine.
get them in.
Can you do on the fly, Katie? Yeah, I'm
can
more
Ellen-
concerned about the 3:17.
Yeah, because they've been things, can Ellen abstain if I can't vote?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I mean, I can,
Guys, as long as a draft is posted,
Right.
within 45 days, you're in compliance. So
Okay.
I wouldn't really jump to doing something that you're not comfortable with.
So,
And you can, by the way, Kristen, it's a majority of the those present at the meeting, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, so,
Oh, good point. Yep.
so I
Okay.
mean, I can send a draft if everybody wants, and we can do them at our next meeting. And if everyone has edits, just send them through Freddie. How's that? I think that's what we've done in the past. We used to send them to Betsy. So,
Sounds good to me.
and then we'll just get them edited. What?
For quorum, it's a quorum for the meeting. If somebody abstains, you still have a quorum.
Right, but
Okay.
they, no one's reviewed the minutes.
All right,
So
so
that's-
that's different, but I thought you were stopping
Yeah.
because
No.
you wouldn't have a quorum if somebody abstains,
So-
but you still do.
Ellen, do you want to just send?
So actually, it looks like I made the edits in the Dropbox. So
Oh.
those are the ones that are showing up.
Okay, so hey, why don't we just look at these and we'll, just so we see the draft that, oh yeah, look at that, wrong date. That was a long discussion, let me tell you. It was, going through this and trying to do the minutes was oh yeah. Okay. Okay, very good, yeah.
That's it.
I like
Yeah.
minors, those are good.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll send these over with these edits, if everybody's good. I'll send it over to the townhouse, and I'll put a note that, you know, they'll be approved at our next meeting. So, if we do meet for just a quick Zoom meeting regarding Freddie's contract, we'll toss the minutes in too. So if anybody has edits to the minutes, shoot them over to Freddie, and what I'll do is I'll try to get the other two sets done too, of 6:18, the forum, which should be easy, and then the meeting before. I'll try to get those done in advance too. So if everybody could just look for a meeting in September. I'm going to leave open August at this point. You know, we'll see what we can get done. If everyone could just look at September. So we're going to have the applications in by the 15th. So, looking at some of the things, it probably would be best if we scheduled a meeting to go over I think the signage is going to potentially take a little bit of a discussion. I'm just thinking about what we have. So we're going to have after the 15th, we're going to have the initial review of the applications. None have came in yet. So I'll leave it up to everybody. We could tentatively do 2 meetings in September, or we just do 1 and do it after the 15th. So, I mean, the signage at this point can wait. It's not a holdout. So does everyone want to meet? I'm just pulling it up, sorry. September, so the 15th is a Monday. We could meet on the 17th, on a Wednesday, if that works for people. We can do the 16th, 17th, or I'm gone the 18th. So I know it's hard for everybody to try to confirm schedules this far in advance, but, so that's a Tuesday or Wednesday. Katie?
I have no preference right now.
Okay, Grant? I'll just go around, sorry.
Either work for me.
Okay, Claire?
I'm fine.
Ellen?
Yeah, those both should be fine.
You said
Just don't know
again?
any school schedules yet.
16th or 17th?
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Okay, so we know that those are open. I mean, if you guys want to wait till the beginning of, you know, September to get the school schedules and everything down, we know tentatively, it seems like, Katie, are you good on those dates? Or do you have a select
Yes.
board? You're good too. All right, so we're all good on those dates. So why don't we just wait? I'll make a note, like the first week in September. I'll send out a note to everybody and see if anybody's schedule, you know, changed, if there's a preference. How's that? But tentatively, we'll do the 16th or the 17th. Does that work for you, Freddie? Well, yes or no? Is one day not work?
I don't know, so just,
Well,
depending on my hand, I'll be back in Belchoir, and I don't know if it's Tuesday or Wednesday, so.
okay, can you find out before the first week in September?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's do that
I
then.
just can't do it today.
Okay, nope, that's
If I
fine.
don't get this fixed, I won't be.
One thing I'll note, Lisa, in terms of timing, with the application handbook, we gave ourselves until October 10th to determine
Oh, the technical review?
technical, you know, eligibility. So if we need multiple meetings or whatever, I think there's a buffer there.
Okay.
So that was a few weeks to, you know,
Okay.
we want
I
to
guess-
conform to our own rules.
Okay, nope, that's perfect. So we'll just do the 16th or the 17th. We'll plan on that now. I will send over the March minutes, the draft. We'll get those done. We'll get all the minutes caught up at that point, and we'll get answers from council. So, okay. So, yep, go ahead. Claire, were you trying to say something? Claire?
Oh,
Okay.
I'm here.
Sorry, I thought you were trying to say something. I apologize.
No, sorry.
Okay, so I think we've got some working orders, and what I'll do is I'll put together just a little draft of, you know, what we talked about tonight and where we're going, you know. So, okay, perfect. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call. Katie?
Aye.
Ellen?
Aye.
Kristen? Nope, sorry, darn it. Sorry about that. Grant?
Aye.
Claire?
Aye.
And Lisa, aye. All right, everybody, thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank you,
all.
everyone.
guys.
Bet.
Night.